I would love to start the morning. We love to start the morning with a special musical guest. And today, I'm so happy that one of my friends, who is actually from Râmnicu Vâlcea, but lives in Bucharest, accepted to share with us his passion for an instrument that I actually see it as a real underdog of musical instruments. It was a small surprise when I searched the name of the instrument in English, and apparently it's also kobza. Right, Bogdan?
Yes, we can't. Hi, Stefania. Hello, everyone. First of all, yeah, it's called kobza because it's an instrument that only exists in Wallachia and Moldova. So even in historical times, it never crossed the mountains. It never got to Transylvania or to Maramuresh, and it's actually a local adaptation of the Persian barbat or the Arabic oud. But as some of you may know, these lutes, these wooden instruments that were played by minstrels or bards or troubadours were spread all over the world, starting from India to from the Indian classical sitar to the Mississippi banjo in southern United States. So this is just one of the numerous lutes, and it's the only local adaptation that we have. It's also the oldest stringed instrument in the Balkans. I think it's important.
Well, can we hear it?
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to play a 19th century song. It's from, it was written down in 1850. Maybe it's older. Oaie verde, simino, pasăre galbenă în joc, rău mi-ai cântat de noroc, rău mi-ai cântat de noroc. De ți-ar pica șocul tău, de ți-ar pica șocul tău, ca să nu mai cânți de rău, ca să nu mai cânți de rău. Pasăre da venă-n pene și stai vreme peste vreme și soroc peste soroc nu mă vezi că ars în para focului, ars în para focului, din pricina dorului și din traliului, mă. Că mi-a plecat iubita lunii, prinsă dragostea lunii și dorul prin mărecini n-am putere să-l aduni. Și dorul prin mărăcini, n-am nici milă, nici sprijin mare.
Everybody is clapping and cheering from their own corner in each room. Thank you so much, Bogdan.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's nice imagining them clapping.
Or they can also use, you know, the virtual jazz hands, and also share your support on the Facebook chat, comments, and the chat of the of Zoom. And also don't forget to search and follow Bogdan on Facebook and Instagram. He also has two amazing projects. One called Taraful de Mătase that you can access on YouTube on the links shared. And also Fragmente, which is a podcast about traditions in music, but if I'm not mistaken, also culinary, right?
It's actually a series. Fragmente is a series we every couple of months, maybe every month and a half or every 2 months, we film in one village in Romania. Me and the chef I work with, he goes out to cook with the women in the respective community, and I play with the gypsy lautari in that community. We also started a podcast on the same YouTube channel called Fragmente. So the series is us filming in rural Romania, in the countryside. But we started the podcast because we had a period of about 3 months when we couldn't go anywhere in Romania. So we didn't want to stop posting content on YouTube. So that's that. And I would much rather encourage people to follow me on Instagram, because I'm not really up to date with my Facebook account. So generally when I let people know about my shows or other activities that I'm doing, I generally announce it on Instagram.
Okay, so follow him on Instagram, Simeon Bogdan Mihai. Thank you so much once more. Someone even shared that thank you. You transported them at the mountain, and that you brought joy, and you bring joy. So
Nice.
Thank you.
I'm glad.
Every month, as mentioned at the beginning, all the Creative Mornings chapters from all over the world, they're exploring a global theme. This global theme was in July, and it was chosen by Creative Mornings Edinburgh and illustration by Astrid Jekyll. I must admit that when I first found out that we'll have this theme, our guest from today was actually the first person that came into my mind. And I'm very grateful and thank you from the beginning that you accepted to be with us. This guest also has an amazing project that most of you, I'm sure you know, a magazine that believes that well-crafted, intimate journalism can connect people, heal wounds, inspire, lead, and create change. From this point of view, we have quite many shared values between our communities, and we love to support each other. So if you want to support the door, you can go to at the website that I will also share in the Facebook chat, and take a digital version and support great journalism. So thank you so much, Cristian, for accepting our invitation, and you have the virtual microphone.
Thank you for having me. Can everyone hear me? Just a quick, any kind of thumbs up would be great. Oh? Yes, thank you. Okay, thanks again, guys, for having me here. Let me pull up some notes, because I'm a journalist. I need to work with something. Just want to give another shout out to Bogdan. Please check out Fragmente. It's one of the coolest, craziest, weirdest things I've seen in the past couple of years. It's just wonderful. Like two men going out in the countryside and taking us into really awesome worlds and these recipes that you probably forgot or never heard of. Really love that. And just a sign of how small the world is, there was another Râmnicu Vâlcea mafia person in my newsroom who said, "Oh, Stefania and Bogdan, I know them. I went to school with them." I'm like, okay, great. Everyone is from Râmnicu Vâlcea sometimes. So I also want to thank the Cluj community, even though this is a virtual gathering. They have always been so nice and so supportive and an inspiration to everything we've done at DOR. And I consider, even though I'm in my home in Bucharest, I will take this as being in this virtual space created by the people of Cluj. So if you are from Cluj, thank you very much for hosting us over the years. Behind me are some lights that we put up at Christmas, actually, and that we've never taken down because, hey, it's 2020. There are no rules anymore. Probably some of you are in pajamas. Those of you with the camera off, who knows what's going on there. And I'm sure most of you believe it's still Tuesday. And actually 6 out of 7 days feel like a perpetual Tuesday. At least they have been feeling like a perpetual Tuesday for me since March, which is why I also thought, man, this topic is really exciting. So when Stefania asked me, I was really excited. I really loved it. At first I said, we're in a pandemic, creative industries of all kinds are hurting. So I was like, yeah, we are the underdogs. Like, this is the time of the underdogs. Because what sets underdogs apart? It's like innovation and resilience and our capacity to deal with uncertainty. And underdogs even love losing. And we're, as underdogs, you work to get better at losing. And over the past few weeks, I've been coming back over and over to this poem by the American poet Elizabeth Bishop. And it's called One Art, and it starts like this, and I'll just read you the first six lines, the first 2 stanzas. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seemed filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, accept the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So I keep going. I've been going around for the past few weeks saying, yeah, this is what it's all about. Like mastering the art of losing and taking it all in, especially in these trying times, are very important. But then over the past few days, I've started thinking about the theme today and these ideas, and I realized that things are not quite as clear cut, at least not for me. And although I do see myself and our work at DOR as underdogs to a great degree, I also realize that we are never the same type of dog, or we are a different type of underdog at various points in our lives, whether our personal lives or the lives of our organizations and projects. So what I'd like to share with you today are these these ideas that I have about, let's say, 4 types of underdogs, and a few thoughts about where all of us might find ourselves on this spectrum. And I would love to chat about them with you during Q&A. And the first type of underdog I thought about is sort of an underdog by kind, like the underdog that you find yourself being by the hand that you were dealt. I grew up in Târgu Mureș. I was a pretty shy and scared kid. Actually, I think a very scared kid, but that's something kids don't like to admit, because that makes them even more vulnerable to the world. But that was me, and I grew up in a family with 2 very strong underdog parents. They were both first in their families to go to college, so they had lived the life of sort of the underdog, being the first to make it. So there was some of that pressure for me to follow, and both of my parents became doctors, so I was sort of destined for medical school, which I didn't end up attending, but that's a different story. And I grew up reading anything that had an underdog as a character. Like I was in love with stories of underdogs that were trying to make it. So I loved the Three Musketeers, and I fell in love with D'Artagnan. For those of you who've not read the books, there's 4 Musketeers in those books, although the title says 3, because the 4th of them is not a musketeer. Like he's a guy from the countryside trying to make it among these nobles and trying to fit in and become one of them. And I always thought, that's who I want to be. Like I'm invisible in school, and I keep writing I don't know, poems to girls so they can like me, and they're not paying attention to me. So how can I end up being like this D'Artagnan guy? How can I become like change my destiny from an underdog that is, unseen to one that has some impact in the world? And I also felt that I was also a big fan of science fiction, and I loved Ender's Game at that point, which is the story of a little boy that ends up helping the planet defeat an alien civilization. At least that's what I understood when I was 14. If you reread that book when you're 30, it's way more dark. And if you see the movie, but that's what I got back then. And I loved playing video games, especially Football Managers, because I could take a team from the lowliest division, like Divizia Județeană, and take it all the way to whatever Premier League was in the game. And sort of to tie it to what I do now, I've always been in love with stories, especially the narrative arc of a Cinderella story, which pretty much says that there's a character that is an underdog, that is unseen, and they can find some miracle that will get them out of the bind that they're in. And this is the most basic definition of what a good story is. And I didn't know that back then, but that's the lens through which I look at the world right now, and through which Dor looks at the world right now. And that means for us, stories are about characters facing obstacles and how they find ways to overcome these obstacles in a quest to change and live better lives. So that is sort of that was my quintessential underdog story. Someone who is somewhere unseen, unheard, and that they find ways to overcome this obstacle and make it. And I'm sure some of you have lived through that part of your underdog story, or some of you will. The next type of underdog I want to talk to you about is sort of an underdog by design, an underdog by the way the world is structured. So as I figured out that my path was not in medicine, I began toying around with the idea of journalism as a way of finding a voice, of being heard, of having something to give back to the world. And it was about a 10-year exploration to find the kind of journalism I wanted to do. When I entered journalism school in 1999, my colleagues wanted to either be TV anchors, or they wanted to write a front page editorial on a printed newspaper, which is something from the previous century where things are printed on paper and you buy them in the street. I'm kidding, but that's sort of how it feels like in Romania. There's almost no printed news product that is worth paying for. That is different for those of you who are in a different country. But that was our goal. But in these 10 years of exploring and sort of being an underdog in the profession, I always had this feeling that I was the youngest everywhere I went. So I was the youngest in my class, I was the youngest in my job, I was the most inexperienced in everything I got to do. I went to get my master's in journalism in the States. I felt I was the stupidest in my class. I was the most behind everyone in terms of what they knew about the world. And the reason I talk about this status as being sort of an underdog, because I think you've all felt this at the beginning of your careers, that there's people you look up to that are doing better work and it just doesn't click for you. Like, you have so much to learn. You understand how it could be done. You understand how good work feels, and how good work feels to you as a consumer. You see it done, but there's just something that doesn't click and you can't make it. Like, Bogdan is a beautiful kobza player right now. I'm sure when he first picked up the instrument, he knew how he wanted it to sound, but it was just it just didn't click. It does now. So for me, what was important is to just stick with it. And there's this beautiful quote by Ira Glass, who's one of my idols, who's a radio producer who's started This American Life, which is also like used to be an underdog in the podcasting and narrative journalism world, but now is a really, really big player. And they are the producers of Serial. If you've heard of it, it made podcasting big around the world. And Ira Glass says this about doing creative work. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste, but there is this gap. For the first couple of years you make stuff, it's just not that good. It's trying to be good. It has potential, but it's not. We know our work doesn't have the special thing that we want it to have. We all go through this. It is only by going through a volume of work that you will close that gap and your work will be as good as your ambitions. And this to me was very important because it told me, okay, if I think I found the kind of journalism that I want to do, or if I found my place in a creative world and I know what I aspire to, then maybe I'm not going to get as good as the most talented person out there, but I can get pretty damn close by working hard and sticking with it and trying. And that's what I've done. I wrote as much as I could. I read all the books in my field that I could. I started editing others. I started picking stories apart. I started teaching classes just to close that gap. And I think that gap between where my work is and the work I aspire to, that gap still exists, but it is shortening. And if I look back, I see progress. So no matter how stuck you feel as an underdog in your chosen profession or creative space, try to look back every once in a while. Look to last year, look to 2 years ago. I bet your work is better. That means your work next year, 2 years from now, will be even better or stronger or more relevant. Okay, the third underdog status that I'm gonna tell you about is being an underdog by choice. And that happened to us at DOR in 2009 when we, by choice, started an independent magazine in the middle of a financial crisis. We had no skills, no plan, just a choice that we wanted to do a different type of journalism than what was available on the market at that point. And we really loved the fact that we were underdogs. So we were underdogs in a profession, by profession. People don't like journalists very much, but we were also underdogs inside the profession, because who has the time to produce 10,000 word stories, like some of the stories that we do? So even inside the profession, we were like the odd people out. And what was awesome about this is we had no idea what we were doing. It was painful as hell. We were on the brink of quitting many times. We almost closed in 2014. We had a really bad financial crisis in 2018. And now, just like many other organizations, we also face the prospect of serious uncertainty and sort of financial pain past September. So this never really ends. But what always has made this easy in a way is we knew that this is what we wanted. So shit was really hard, but it was by choice. So we decided to be an underdog by choice. So any of you that started your own business, your own studio, went the freelancing route, that is the point in your career where you have become an underdog by choice and you are an underdog to the existing system. So my advice here is own that. You're no longer an underdog that's just thrown in a situation. This is the underdog status that you get to choose. And there's not many of those. And this is the one that's should be enjoyable even when it's hard. Learning only happens when things are hard. So the last one, the last underdog is actually not an underdog at all. Because here's what's funny. One day you might wake up and realize that even if your own story of yourself has not changed, like I wake up every day thinking I'm the same scrappy 15-year-old kid fighting to make it. The world doesn't think about me like that anymore. And this has happened to me personally, and this has happened to Dor. When Dor came out, we were the only alternative in the independent journalism scene. But only 5 years later, not only had that changed, but there were journalism projects out there that were an alternative to us. So there were people that became the underdog, and we were pushed into the mainstream. And now, almost 11 years later, we are dinosaurs, and I would be foolish not to admit this. Like I wake up as the editor of what I perceive to be an underdog publication, but we've been around for 11 years. There are many readers that discover Dor today for whom there has never been a world without Dor in it. Like Dor is nothing new. Dor has always been there. It's like that, I don't know, that building in your city, you don't even think about that it was built at some point. We're just part of the landscape. Yeah, that's Dor. We like it or we don't like it, but it's just there. And 11 years later, we still publish a print magazine, but we are also now mostly publishing or most interested in our digital future. We have podcasts. We send out a daily newsletter, Concentrat, that goes to more than 70,000 people. We were hosts of CreativeMornings in Bucharest for 2 years. We do live journalism show. We do an international storytelling conference. There are 20 people on staff in our team. We have a house for an office that has 4 floors that no one's there now, and that's a little creepy for, money. So we are not an underdog anymore, and that's such a weird thought to live with. This is a big dog, or at least it's a medium-sized dog, and this is very important, and I'm probably going to take 5 minutes over the 20 that was allotted just to take this to a logical conclusion. But I was chatting recently with a bookstore, with the founders of a bookstore chain that you all know, that is in almost all the cities in the country, probably around 50 stores now. And they were telling me how surprised they are to hear from book publishers and even buyers that they are considered a giant corporation with incredible power. And they were telling me, when we wake up in the morning, we are still the same one-room little bookstore that tried to make it. But that's not how the world sees you. So I think it's really important at some point to make some kind of peace with this. We are working on a story right now that's going to come out in the next print issue and also online. We're doing a profile of Raed Arafat, who's the most important figure in emergency medicine in Romania. And even though today he wields enormous power, like the guy's been in the seats of power for more than 10 years, he still acts and talks like he's an underdog trying to shake up the system. And the reason many of us have mixed feelings about him, and I'm sure when I said the name, some of you went, oh, there's something there. It is because of this, because he has not made peace with the fact that he started as an underdog, he shook up the system, he came in and challenged the status quo, but now he is a big dog. And as a big dog, there's some things you just should not do. And of course, there's an upside to clinging to this underdog story. You retain the grit to fight on. You keep coming up with new ideas. You are a perpetual challenger to the status quo. But there's a huge downside if you're not aware of the fact that you have become a bigger dog. That if you do not check your privileges, and if you do not take stock of where you are, you risk punching down. And if you are stronger and have access to more platforms and larger platforms like I do now, like I get to talk to you, that is not an underdog status. So to me, it's very important if you make peace with the fact that some people think you're some sort of a bigger dog. Don't play the victim card. Don't blame others for where you are. Please don't unleash your fans on your critics, and never, ever, if possible, punch down. Because you are one of those people trying to climb whatever ladder, professional, social. So if you're somewhere higher on that ladder than others, don't punch down. And at this moment with the pandemic, we are all underdogs now, and that's obvious. But I just hope you will think about the fact that we are not the same kind of underdogs, even with the pandemic. It has hit us all hard. It has hit our families, our friends, our organizations, and we are all suffering in one form or another. But we're not in the same space. And I believe stories have this amazing power of allowing us to feel that we're less alone and to inhabit the world of others. And by learning about their lives, we can find some tools to make our own lives better. Because stories are these incredible empathy building machines. But as the writer Leslie Jamison recently told our team in a Zoom call, empathy becomes completely morally irresponsible when we use it to forget about differences. And what I mean by that, and to sum it up, is yes, we're all underdogs and we love to see ourselves as underdogs, but know the kind of dog you are at a particular moment in life, and be mindful of where others are on their own underdog journeys. And if they are the kind of underdog that is voiceless or marginalized or vulnerable, be an ally and be of help. And if they're just coming up in your profession or they're struggling to get better, bring them along. And if they are breaking with the status quo and deciding to be one of those underdogs by choice, encourage them. Don't tell them that they have no chance of making it. And if they are a big dog, or if you are a big dog, help the big dogs next to you see their power and privilege. That doesn't mean they're not struggling, but they're struggling on a whole different level. Yes, as Stefania said, we desperately need new subscribers, new readers, but we have a different set of problems that people just starting out. So for me, it's important to remind ourselves that it's important to keep the mentality of the underdog, or we'll lose the capacity to innovate. But don't forget that there's always other underdogs out there that you can be helpful for. So thank you. That was all I had.
Everybody's clapping and cheering. I'm sure you can imagine from their own rooms. Thank you so much, Cristian. Yeah, I actually forgot on the moment, on the spot, that you actually brought Creative Mornings in Romania, if I'm not mistaken.
My colleague Andrea did. She did it without Dor for a couple of years. Then we took it over. Yeah.
So we are grateful for that also. Thank you, Andrea, if you're listening. Okay, we open the session for the Q&A. As mentioned at the beginning, you can ask your questions either in the chat, either on the comment section on Facebook, or if let's have a conversation, and I would encourage that. You can use the option of raise your hand. If you go to participants, you will see a small blue hand. So if you raise your hand, I will unmute you and you can have a conversation with Cristian. And while you're thinking of your questions, if you're not sure yet, do you want to make a short and fast group photo? This way I would encourage also people to turn on their cameras for a few seconds. And if you have your favorite mug with you, do share it with us. I will take in a couple of sessions because we're more present here than the screen of my laptop. So in 3, 2, 1, good morning. There goes the first one. Hey, computer. Meanwhile, think about your questions and prepare to raise your hand. And then I will go on the second one. Second print screen and good morning. Thank you. So, questions?
This is so odd. There's no one, I think, from our current team in the Zoom chat because they're sick of hearing me talk. But there's at least 2 people that were on our team in years past that have fled the country, but they're doing great work.
I think you brought the people a lot of food for thought, you know. I see many of them, you know, searching to find the icebreaker question.
That's fine. Zoom is weird. Don't worry. If there's no questions, I'm not offended in any way. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
Okay, we have Adina.
Morning. Super good to hear you, Christy, and very inspiring. Feels like a Friday morning for like 3 years back or 4 years back, you know, in the court of Elvira Popescu. Just now we are in our own rooms. And you were talking about the fact that you are the underdog, right? And then at a certain point you realize that you are not that underdog anymore, right? So basically somehow there is a change in your identity. So you're not the one, because I think when you're an underdog, you can also have some privileges, right? Mm-hmm. So you're the small one, and then maybe you receive more help from the community and so on. But growing from that position, maybe you don't have those privileges anymore. So how do you make peace with that change? Both as an organization, but I think also as I don't know, as someone that is doing just a regular job.
That is very difficult. And what was difficult for us in our organization is coming to terms with this, because if you ask my colleagues now, it's very difficult, I think, for a lot of them to say, like, we need more subscribers, or we need more help, or we need someone to do this with us or for us. Like yesterday, a bunch of us posted various thoughts about working for Dora and what it was like. And I know everyone was cringing inside the newsroom, and they were like, well, we're telling people we need subscribers so we can pay salaries after September, but people look at us from the outside and they think we're this really huge, massive media empire. Like, why do they need help? And I think there's one thing I'll point out here, and I think this is helping me make peace with the moments where, even though I know how we look from the outside, we still need people to come along. And I think that is this knowing the impact that you have on some people, and knowing that you have a community that believes in your work and is close to you. So the reason we feel comfortable talking like we always did and looking at the world the way we always did is because we've always had a community of people around Dor that told us what we meant to them, and told us what we meant to them at different stages in their life. And they understood how we grew, and they also know, because we tell them that if an organization grows, yes, there's a lot of new perks, but there's also a lot of new challenges. So I think there's nothing wrong with keeping in touch with your community and telling them, even as you grow, that there are different things that you need. One thing I'll point out is, and then we can go to another question, is we were that small and scrappy up to a point that I think for the first 4 or 5 years, we asked for a lot of volunteer work. Even us did a lot of volunteer work, like everyone on the team. And from 2015 on, we at least try to pay everybody we work with something. Some people still don't want to accept money. Like there are photographers and artists and writers that don't want to take money from us, even to this day. But what has become something something very important for us is we don't ask for volunteer work anymore, because I don't think that matches where we are right now. And I'm not saying we have a lot of money to throw around. Like we were barely able to pay a few hundred lei for illustrations and writing during the pandemic, but we are still trying to offer something more in return than just, oh, please help us, we need something. Like one perk that you lose when you are not an underdog anymore is that you can't just ask for help, no matter how nice you are. You have to be able to give something back, and not just chocolate and hugs and love. Sometimes you have to, put your money where your mouth is, and also contribute financially to people's well-being, especially in creative enterprises.
We have a question in the chat section from Andrea. When did you stop waking up feeling as an underdog, and how was the process for you?
I at least for us in the work that we do, and I think that goes for me as well, is when we realized that some people are talking about us as a force that needs to have counterbalance. So people who said, yeah, the storytelling Dor does is, I don't know, not the kind we need, or not the only kind we need, and there's got to be something that does it differently, or we don't like how we don't like that Dor covers this and doesn't cover that, so we need to provide an alternative. So that was the wake-up call, and I think it was about 6-7 years ago, when a lot of the new media players that were coming up sort of defined part of what they do as being not like you guys do it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's something we have to live with. And that is sort of, and for me personally, the moment I had to accept that things are different is when I started receiving invitations like this one to talk to you, because it was very easy to be on the sidelines and sort of grin and say I'll make it and I'll show them. But when you are given the space and the microphone, then you have to own up to the fact that okay, there's at least some people that think some of what I have to say is worth hearing, and that changes the dynamic, and it brings a lot of different responsibility that I didn't have before. Like when no one cares about what you have to say, things are easy. When at least a few people are at least interested in what you have to say, then things are much more complicated and scarier. But I think you have to go with the flow.
That is so true. If we have any other questions, I will remind you to use the raise your hand option, and I will unmute you. You can also ask the questions if you're watching on the Facebook Live. add your question in the comment section and I will ask Cristian for you. We have also in the chat of Zoom, what motivated you to come back to Romania after graduating university in the States? Asked Diana.
It actually has a lot to do with the theme today. So the very short answer to that is I was already working in the States. I was on a work visa. My mother never wanted me to come back to Romania, but it all looked very predictable. This was 2006. Things would be different now, but in 2006, with the digital media not being where it is today, no Facebook, no nothing, it all seemed very predictable. Like I would have to spend 2 years here, 2 years there, 4 years there, and then in 15 years time, I would get to do the kind of journalism that I want to do. And I looked to Romania and I said, the good and bad thing about Romania is that there's no standards. I'm sorry. Or if there are standards, there's not enough people enforcing them. So I can come back to Romania at 26 and play the role of the underdog and pretend I know what I'm doing, sort of fake it till I make it, and get to at least try to do the work that I want to do quicker than over there. So I'm not saying that's good life advice, but I think I chose the challenge over the predictable. The challenge of trying to get to do what I want faster, even though the work was going to be crappier. And it did take me 10, 15 years to be able to, I think, own the fact that there's things that I know how to do. But when I started, I didn't know, but I wanted this challenge. And I think Romania, as bad as it may be in some days, still offers this challenge to try things that in other places, it would take you a few more beats because the system is more established. Now, you always have to be aware that the toll it will take on you, that toll exists. So I'm never gonna tell people, come back to Romania, you can try anything. Yeah, you can try a lot of things, but it might hurt. Or maybe you don't have the stomach for that. Or maybe in some areas, there will be forces that will try to crush you. That doesn't happen in independent media, but it might happen in politics. It might happen in social change. It might happen if you join a state institution. So be aware of that. I think I still believe the possibility for change here is enormous, but it's really up to each of us to see how much they can take.
We have time for, okay. 3 more questions in the chat section. Razvan is asking, besides the American life, what other projects inspired you to go into storytelling journalism?
So I always say that my Bible is The New Yorker. The New Yorker is a magazine that's been around for almost 100 years now. It started in 1925, and they went through many stages of both the underdog and the big dog, but they've always been committed to telling complicated stories about the way we live now, both as individuals and society. So the New Yorker remains very important to me. And just long form narrative journalism in general that can be published anywhere in written form or in podcasts or even in like documentaries. So good storytelling exists now everywhere. Like Netflix has sent out so many stories into the world. It's absolutely insane in the past 2 years. And podcasts, narrative podcasts in series are also going insane. So there's so much storytelling available today. It's crazy. And I think you just have to find the kinds that work for you, because they're good, complicated stories about any field, from sports to politics.
We also have a question from Facebook. If you had such a moment, I think it was on the part of giving up. Can you tell us about the moment when you wanted to give up and how did you overcome it? Asked Raluca. Thank you for the question.
Wow. I think I want to give up every week. To be honest, like this, I think just this Monday I came home and told my girlfriend I'm gonna give this up. I'm just not cut out to do this. So I think that feeling, I think that feeling exists, and I think that all of us that do any kind of creative work, I think that is sort of that feeling is a companion on this journey. I think the trick is to not wallow in it, or the trick is to catch that feeling and sort of turn towards it and say, did we have a bad day? Is this because something happened today? Is this a sign of a broken system? Is this just, I don't know, that you didn't get to run in the past week and that your brain is foggy? What is it? So that feeling is constant. So it's not that I overcame it, it's that I know I find it. I know it's always going to be better in the morning. And I always try to remind myself why I do what I do. And sort of, if the answer to that question, and for me, the answer to that question is, I do what I do because I try to put stories out into the world that help people live better lives. And as long as I get feedback, or we get feedback as a publication, that there's people for whom our work means something, then that answer drives me to keep going. It would probably be a different story if that feeling continued to exist and there was no feedback saying the work is good. We're not there yet, but that's how I overcome it.
Okay. We have 2 more questions, and unfortunately they're the last one. I'm sure that we could talk for more and more, but even though it's a Friday and we're virtual, I'm sure that people still have to go to work. And the 2 questions are connected with the underdog status. Raluca asks, have you ever experienced the desire to stick to the underdog status, meaning you deliberately choose to make changes just to stay an underdog? For example, change the job, start something new?
Always. My team kind of would like me to stop doing that because it's not necessarily that I get bored of the things that we do, but I am afraid that the things that we do will become routine. So I kill projects that we do sometimes. I push us to do different things. I sometimes would like us to shake the power of the brand and just do something completely different where there's no precedent. Like for a while we were talking about maybe we should do a magazine that nobody knows who did it, that will be called Armpit, and it would be just stories about armpits. But the way we do it inside an organization is try to come up with new underdog projects inside the work. So when the pandemic started, we started an email newsletter called the Pandemic Journal. That was a project started from scratch. We had no idea where it was going to go. We had no funding, no separate resources for it, no plan. We kept it going for almost 3 months, and then we said, let's turn it into Door's daily newsletter, and that is now Concentrat, which has become sort of its own product that is run and curated by my colleague Nicole, that doesn't have so much of the weight of the Door brand. So that was the long answer, but this is sort of the quick answer. I think always try to stay an underdog, and if you can't change sort of the core of what it is that you do, try to start some side projects or some hacks that will get you into that feeling.
I think the question from Juana, it kind of relates with the answer that you gave before. It's what happens when you acknowledge you're not an underdog anymore, but still behave like one because you're afraid of what's next.
I I think that's one of my biggest fears. And I think the risk is that you are going to be just very out of sync with the world. It would be like, I think it happens often when, I don't know, a state institution asks for money when we think they're a bad manager. Or I don't know, if Facebook came to you today and said, please donate $1 for us to keep the servers going, you would be, oh, just get out of here. So I think that's the risk, is that, you know, you feel like you're an underdog and you feel like you need to get the world to help you, and the world thinks we are the ones who need help, not you. And the risk is that you sort of become a prisoner of that status and stop trying to find new ways to make things happen. You will just keep shouting that you're an underdog and no one listens to you, when you could be out finding new ways of collaborating with others, joining a partnership, asking your community how things need to change. So doing a lot of other things than just saying things are not working out for us.
And we have one last question. I'm really curious of your answer also, from Marius. Can you recommend a musical album you're really into right now?
I replied in the chat, but I only sent it to Andrea. So there it is. I actually like the latest Killers album. It's corny as hell. And that partly shows my age, but that is a fun record to listen to.
Woo, thank you so much, Cristian.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We can use the jazz hands also. And thank you everybody for joining us at our second edition of Creative Mornings Cluj. As mentioned at the beginning, we will stay in the virtual mode until January for the safety of our global community. So we're looking forward to meet you again in the virtual version next month. I am so grateful for this community, and for Cristian for accepting to explore this really intriguing and fascinating global theme chosen by Creative Mornings Edinburgh. And I would say let's leave the meeting in a very nice tune. And since we talked about music at the beginning, as the last question, we have a song.